Cloud. Cool. We are up and ready to go.
Cool. Let's get started. You guys have to leave anytime in between, totally fine. This class is really what you make of it, but hopefully we'll be covering the bare essentials of acting for the screen. A little bit about me and my qualifications. I have very little. I am a student at UNC. I've been doing a lot of stage acting for many years, but I'm still pretty new to screen acting. However, I've taken acting for the screen class with Ray Dooley, and I've been a part of a couple behind the scenes and in front of the screen productions at UNC, whether through STV, CFA, different films, helping my friends around. And I can speak to the technical skills required for an actor and especially the behavior on set that's required. But before anything else, this is like a class like any other thing. Don't ask me if you have to use the bathroom, just go. Honestly, it's Zoom, so you could take me there as well. Just make it a personal experience, not a communal one. Other than that, I also, my neighbor might be coming around at some point because they're very nice people and they give me food sometimes. So if that's the case, I might get a phone call and I'll show a video of what I think is good acting, and then we'll make it up from there. We'll act. Yeah, let's get started. All right. Acting for the camera. What is it all about? I think when you talk about acting for the camera, you have to split it into a couple of key distinctions because one, you have to understand what acting is to begin with, right? And two, you need to distinguish it from the other types of acting that exist in the world. And three, really touch on what makes it unique and how to do it well. So this course will be divided into a couple of parts. First, we'll talk about acting for the stage versus the screen. Two, we'll talk about certain techniques you can do on screen to help improve your acting. Three, we'll talk about the responsibilities of a good screen actor. And four, we'll discuss the behavior necessary on any set. So let's get started with the first part, stage versus the screen. In general, I kind of assume that people come into acting through drama. It's the thing that's present in most high schools, whether it's like a stage play, whether you're watching it, whether you're behind the scenes or you're in front of the stage acting. It's a lot of larger than life projection and playing these large characters. And it sparks that initial interest for a lot of people. Sometimes that's not the case, and some people come straight to acting for the screen. But I think in order to better understand screen acting, it's helpful to note those distinctions. There are a couple core differences between stage acting and screen acting. With stage acting, everything on stage is live, and you can't take those moments back. Once you say something, once you do something, an action, you can't take it back. And a lot of people say that's the beauty of it. Screen acting in its own sense is the complete opposite. Nothing is live. Everything is caught on camera. You can do 1,000 takes of the same scene and just pick one to settle with. And even after that, that footage can be manipulated and edited to make it into something even completely different. So when that format is different, that changes the type of acting required. For stage acting, you have to project to reach people in the back of an audience. Screen acting is much more subtle. You don't have to scream. There are microphones right above your head that can pick up even the tiniest sounds. So that means the tiniest differences make a difference. Whether you're breathing really heavily, whether you are smirking just slightly, the camera catches everything. It's very intimate. So that means you need much more precision when it comes to screen acting. A big phrase you'll hear a lot when it comes to screen acting is the phrase, less is more. Memorize that, remember it if you are going to direct anybody in the future on serious screen projects. Remember that as a note. A lot of the times what you'll see is when a stage actor moves and transitions into screen acting, you'll see that they tend to overplay things on camera, their movements, their voice, projection, and that's all fine and dandy if you're maybe doing something that requires that type of acting, like a sitcom or farce. But if you're going for something a little bit different than that, you need to tone it down. Screen acting is really adept at capturing real life moments. That's why you don't see staged documentaries. It doesn't capture real life. That's what the camera's for. It has that unique ability to capture those small moments. So when you're acting on a screen, oftentimes the note you'll be given is do less. Do less, do less, do less, do less. That means get out of your head and just focus on what's in front of you and just say the lines. If you've done your research, if you've done your homework, and if you're following the basic rules that I'm about to teach you, it should be enough. You just be you and your character. The process of stage acting and screen acting is really different as well. With stage acting, it's a bit more playful in the space. You have weeks of rehearsal leading up to the final shows of performance. You have time to work with the director about your character, fleshing it out, moving in the space, trying different options. But for screen acting, it's almost completely in reverse. Actors are expected to show up to the set with some homework already done. Well, the same can be said for stage acting. It's much more for screen acting. When you get to a bit more professionals levels, you'll find that actors show up to the set with the script already memorized. You'll find that they've already planned out the blocking in a certain scene, or they've already thought through the lines that have been written for them and what is necessary for each scene. This is also important because the way these stories progress, these acting scenes progress, that is much different between stage acting and screen acting. When you sit down in a play and you ready yourself, you take a picture of the playbill. In a play, you are expecting a 90-minute or 2-hour performance, and it's going to go from here to there. When you are acting for the screen, on the first day of set, you may be starting off with the final shot of a film or the TV show. It's going to be different because you have that capability to edit. What that demands of a screen actor is the ability to know the entirety of a story and jump into character at each precise moment, knowing the given circumstances of what has happened in the story and understanding what it takes to get into character. Screen acting is a lot less forgiving of these colloquialisms where like you need to get in character, you just do your stage exercises. No, know the character and be ready to jump in at any moment, because the thing I will also reference later in behavior on set is that a lot of screen acting is decentered on the actor themselves. There's so many other moving parts on a set at any given moment that you need to be focused on your own work and making sure that in your brain you know what you're doing at any given moment. A lot is expected of a screen actor, but at the end of the day, both stage acting and screen acting have a core piece to both of them: acting. And acting is all about believable behavior in the given circumstances. That's it. It's really simple. Do we believe you? If somebody on screen is looking at you and you're a fire person and you're saving somebody from a fire, do we believe your performance? It's really as simple as that, right? And a lot of it has to do with production. If you're wearing a fire person's outfit, then maybe that does have to work for you, right? it has a lot to do with that behavior. And for the actor, that means knowing the given circumstances. That's part of the homework. But more on that later. I've boiled down what is required for screen acting into three distinct traits: authenticity, imagination, and focus. What do these three things mean? It's pretty simple. Authenticity. When you have a camera in front of you that's capturing literally everything, there's no running away from it. There is a distinct part of screen acting where a big part of what you're giving is yourself. It is your look. It is your key, distinct person. Everybody is different. And I think something I really enjoy about screen acting is that because it is so real and grounded in a camera that captures everything, screen acting has the ability to seem more real to somebody. You actually hear a lot of stories about people who've never acted before in their lives and jump straight into screen acting. And I think you can see that really well because screen acting is all about authenticity, what you present as yourself. Casting directors, when they're looking for characters for their TV shows or their films, are looking for the closest fit to a character. There's so many people out there that present unique traits about them. Some people are warm and inviting, some people are cold and condescending. Those aren't negative traits, actually, in the eyes of the camera. It's just different traits that you can capture on film. If you are self-aware and know what you present, and also know what you don't do as well, you can work on the traits that you think you don't represent and maybe begin to focus on working on those things. What do I mean by that? I'm a really funny person. I'm a haha, giggly, funny dude. But that means I'm limited in the roles that casting directors see me as. If I'm auditioning for a very serious role that's very grounded, I don't have a lot of work to show in that regard. That means I need to focus on what is true to me, right? Because at times I know I can be serious. That's part of my authentic self. So if I'm self-aware of those things and I can ground my performances in those emotions and the given circumstances of a character, I might be cast, right? And sometimes I won't be because there's so many actors with so many different talents, and casting directors are very specific in what they want. But at the end of the day, you have to be authentic. Imagination. This is so important. In the biggest sense of the word, imagination is everything. You know those scenes in like a movie where people build like their mind palace around them and like they can just visualize everything, the special effects? That is the job of an actor. In their brain, an empty set should be able to turn into a wide array of diverse landscapes, right? Because here's the thing, you might be on a set that's completely green screen, but you have to imagine what the ground beneath you feels like, what the landscape in front of you looks like, what everything smells like. It's so important to grounding yourself in those characters, and it's what's going to lift you above a normal everyday actor. Imagination is key, especially in a format of acting that is as editable as screen acting. A lot of the times, you'll find that when somebody is doing a scene in which they are talking to somebody off screen, sometimes that person off screen is not there, right? They don't need to be there. All that's in frame is me. So I have to use my attention and acting to imagine this person there, sitting there, what they look like, their hair, their clothes, how I feel about them, right there. And it's all maintained through your attention. It's all imagination, and it's all about focus. Going to my next point, the most beautiful thing about screen acting is focus, where people put it. on screen, it's between two people. It's that chemistry. And a lot of the times, I think the pitfall that a lot of actors, including me especially, the pitfall we get into is we lose focus. It's really, really, really easy to get lost in your thoughts. Like, what is my next line? What am I supposed to be acting like? What do I look on like on camera right now? It just a jumble of mess that eventually loses focus. That is going to be our biggest issue. One key technique I'll talk about later is outward directed attention focus. It is key to maintain focus on what the world is around you when it comes to screen acting, because that is what everybody else on camera sees. Nobody wants to see a person go inward to themselves thinking about themselves. Even then, even in scenes where there's like voiceover dialogue of somebody talking to themselves, people are paying attention outside, like looking to different places to make sure their thoughts are right. There is a key distinction between those different authentic performances, and you'd be surprised when you see it on camera. So let's move into our second topic, which is techniques for on-screen camera. I've touched a little bit upon these techniques, but I can go into them a little bit further. Starting with the eyes. In film, it is an understatement to say that the eyes are the window to the soul. When it comes to any shot, especially the medium and close-up shot, people behind the screen, the audience members, are going to be looking at the character's eyes, their faces as a whole. This distinct region of the camera is so important because this is what it's all about. When it comes to acting, the face is where everything happens. The eyes hold that authentic self. It holds the focus. It's where you see the imagination happening. Oftentimes, you'll notice that you pay less attention if the eyes are blurred out in a shot with an actor. And that's because they're so key to the identity of a person. That's why a lot of the times you can barely recognize somebody when there's that black bar above their eyes. There's a reason. And it's because on camera, on a close-up, so much of what's going on in here and what's being focused out there is in these two little dots right here. Acting for the screen is all about capturing those moments of attention. And whether or not you're acting, even if you're a screenwriter, even if you're a director, even if you're an editor, the best thing you can keep in mind is making sure that the subject, the actor, is being lit up and the face of the person is being captured. It's so key that you need to be seen and you need to be heard. Without that, you don't even have acting to begin with. But it is especially with the eyes. The eyes, when it comes to an actor, they don't lie. They act. I'll talk about 3 technical skills that will help you regardless of your skill level. A lot of what I'll be talking about applies to more professional sets, but if you maintain these 3 basic skills, you will find that even in the shows you do with STV where you're acting, CFA where you're acting, anything where you're acting, knowing these 3 basic skills will help you be seen better, be heard better, and be more appealing to the camera itself. And these 3 skills are knowing your frame, hitting your mark, and focal points. Now, what do I mean by that? All right, knowing your frame. We're all film people here. We know what the frame is. It's literally, we're staring at it right now. This is what's in frame. All around each of us, yes, Chris. All around each of us is a box. And knowing what's in the box is extremely important. for the director, for the DP, and especially for the actor. Because a lot of the times, you may have noticed this before, but a lot of the times you'll find that actors really want to act outside the box. They really want to go crazy. And in this one circumstance, it's okay to think inside the box. It's okay to stay in here. Because an essential part of acting is being seen. And knowing what you can do and can't do in a specific frame is really important as an actor. So what does this look like? All right, let's say this is the camera in front of me and there's a person behind them. Behind the camera, I ask the DP, hey, what's in frame? And they mention it's a medium shot. Don't go too crazy, all right? That means I'm not gonna do really big movements. They're not gonna capture my hand. I'm not going to step above really quickly. I'm going to make sure that the camera sees me and I slowly go up, right? It's nothing quick. You don't want to get off camera too quickly. It's really important to know your frame and make sure that in any screen acting, the first thing you should know is knowing your frame and staying inside. Hey, Marky. A second key technical skill when acting is hitting your mark. I can't stress this enough. In more professional sets, this little thing right here, this is a mark. You, as an actor, nuzzle your two little feet right here, and right where that mark is exactly where the camera wants you to be and your entire body. It's perfectly set right where it needs to be. So you are in frame. Same thing, same deal. Hitting your mark is really important because if you go off mark, you're gonna find yourself a little bit sideways, where a scene that should be me in the middle is actually me a little bit off screen. It's really important to hit your mark and be precise about it. Now, a lot of the times you'll find in student film or student television, we don't have professional marks already planned out. A fun little tip I'll give you all. Always carry like a small object with you, or like find a little object near you, like your keys or your phone. Don't use your phone, actually, you might step on it. But when you are in frame and you are being set on camera and your director says, all right, just stay there, that's perfect. Get your little object and move it down right where your feet are. What you'll find is acting is a lot of repetition. It's a lot of doing the same scene over and over and over again. And if you are entering from off screen to on screen every single time, you're gonna need to be able to stay in the same place. You need to be able to plant in the exact same point on the frame every single time. That will make your editor's life a whole lot easier as well. So just knowing this simple thing can really help you out to make sure that you are knowing exactly where you're in frame and it's appropriate for what's being shown on camera. The final thing is focal points. A lot of the times, what we do unconsciously when we're talking is we'll find ourselves drifting off in thought and we'll direct our eyes in different places around the room. I'm gonna give you guys a challenge. The next time you're on a phone call, just in the back of your brain, just note where your eyes trail. Because usually it's not in one direction. If you're sitting still, listening to a phone call, you're thinking. And just like I said before, the eyes are really important because they're showing what's chugging in that little brain of yours. And what you'll find is that the eyes tend to move while you're thinking. So the screen actor can reverse engineer that to be more appealing on camera. It's like working backward and achieving thought through mechanics. So while you're on a set and you are looking at the place where you're supposed to be for this next scene, think about the places where you want to point your attention, right? If there is a scene partner off screen, you need to be able to look at the empty room in front of you and pick different points on the room to pretend there's something there, right? So if I pick that light, just like the leg of that light in the corner, that's my friend's feet. A little bit above it on the knob that helps lower and adjust the light, that's my friend's face. It's imagination, right? But it's also a key mechanic that you can use to help place your imagination somewhere specific so the camera picks up that movement. I made a video to showcase all these things, what to do and what not to do. I edited it, but Premiere didn't save it as well, so I botched it. So I'm gonna show you what is essentially like those middle school dare videos that try to get you not to do drugs, but what if the middle schoolers saw that and made their own video? So, okay, I titled it Class Bad Video Yucky. Okay, so I'll narrate while the video is going, but if we're thinking about knowing what's on frame, right? On our left here, we have a bad example. We have a lot of head movement. A lot of the times what we'll find is that still movement of the head or little to no movement is actually much better for the camera. You saw my face go off screen there for a second. I didn't know what was in frame. What is here on the right is much more compelling to watch. You don't want to block your face on the camera. That's your prime real estate. That's what you're selling. A lot of movement here and going off frame is not only shitty to your editors and your camera person, but it's going to make sure that you're going to take a lot more takes. It's really important to stay still and to know what's in frame. Now, let's move on to our next point, which is hitting our mark. On the left, we'll see a very bad example of hitting your mark. That's not in frame. This is very bad, right? But here's the thing. What's going on here is the same exact scene, right? It's the same perfect level of acting, right? You've done all your homework. You've made sure that this is your big moment on camera, and you are pouring your heart into this scene right here. But you're not in screen. The camera isn't picking up your great acting skills. So what's the point of doing the work if we can't see it, right? It's really important to hit your mark. So our third thing, our outward directed attention, our focal points. Like I said, a phone call is a great way to tell where our focal points are. On the left, you'll see a very stagnant phone call in which there's only one direction in which I'm looking. Now, this is fine, actually. In fact, this left shot is better shot because you see a lot more of my face, but it's very stagnant. What's in front of me is my room, right? My camera is placed up on my water bottle, right? But I'm pretending like I'm seeing something here, right? In my mind, I'm picturing my living room, right? The sun is streaming through the window. It's hitting me. It's about sunset. It's right around where I call my grandparents, right? I've set the scene up for myself. Right here is my couch. Right here is my lamp. Right here, the corner of my ceiling. And right here is the window. I'm imagining this all in my head, but if you look at my eyes, I'm looking at different places. What you can do is stitch together different pieces of thought. It's almost like hardwiring your acting. You're talking to your grandparents and they say something that makes you feel warm. Turn your eyes towards the warm window. Or maybe you have to conclude this call. All right, look back down and return to the place where you started your eye contact. A lot of this is really nitpicky, right? And this is what is required for an entry-level type of acting if you want to elevate yourself, right? It's really working backwards when it comes to this screen acting, right? But what you'll find is that when you place different focal points on camera for yourself, you'll find your thoughts naturally progressing with the movements that you've assigned yourself, right? It's a very good way to give yourself a reason to think. And if acting is believable behavior under given circumstances, why wouldn't you help yourself ground yourself in those given circumstances? Why don't you help yourself jog those thoughts? It's also helpful to give yourself focal points in different lines of dialogue to help you memorize as well. Just different mechanical things that'll really, really help you out when it comes to just memorizing and preparing for acting when it comes to the screen. That's my yucky video. Besides those three things, there are certain terminology on set. I know a lot of us have been behind the camera before, so this will be a lot of repetition. But an important thing to understand is that these different terminology also hold a different meaning for the actor. So let's get right into it. A lot of the times before your shoot on set, set being the place where the filming is happening. It can be in the middle of an empty field. It can be in a really professional studio at Hollywood. Regardless, it's where the equipment is and it's where the people are. That is the set. So when you are on set, you'll find that people often on the production team, the people behind the camera, are always talking, right? And you're just sitting there waiting to be filmed on camera. It's important to stay quiet, but also listen for these certain terminologies to know when things are happening. People will call sound ready, lights ready. And another thing they'll call is talent ready. You are the talent. The actor or the actresses are the talent. It's just another way to say, are all the people who are going to be on screen ready? And then you just say ready. And then they'll say camera ready, and they'll say ready. And then they'll call rolling. Rolling means the camera has started recording, but it doesn't mean start acting, right? Sometimes, especially when I was starting out, when somebody's called rolling, I would just start saying my lines. That's not what you're supposed to do. In fact, it just means everybody behind the scenes are ready for this moment to be captured. Then the director will call action, and that's when you start. A fun tip I'll give y'all for acting when it comes to the screen: try starting whatever you're going to be doing in the scene before your director calls action. Now, what does this mean? Like I said, phone calls are a great thing in any sort of scene. So if somebody calls rolling, make sure that you as an actor begin to get in character. Like, okay, what is happening in the scene? All right, I'm calling my friend, ba, 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 ba. If the first thing in a scene, right when action is called, is you putting the phone up to your head, make sure that you're dialing the number right before. And when the director calls action, you're already in character. You will be ready to do that scene right where the action was started right before. It's a really good way to just jumpstart you right into that scene. Call time. I think a lot of us could benefit from learning what this means. Call time is when whatever role you're assigned on a set is being called onto the set. It's whatever schedule is being set up, so you know exactly when to be called. There's sometimes a thing called a call sheet, in which you'll find different roles are being called at different times. Just scroll through it, look for your name or your role, and make sure you understand what time is being called, you're being called, and show up then. Cut. It is the antithesis to action. When a director calls cut, that is when the camera stops rolling and you get out of acting, right? A really important distinction to keep in mind, especially in higher level screen acting. If somebody calls action, you don't stop acting. If they don't call cut, you keep acting. You have to keep acting, right? Um, and that doesn't mean improving the scene necessarily, but it means staying in that headspace. With that in mind, the word stand by is exactly what this encaptures. Somebody might not call cut. The director might call stand by to work out some production issues. That just means you go into focus mode, right? You remember your three things: authenticity, imagination, focus, right? Imagine the world around you. Make sure you're focusing on what you're doing in the scene, and make sure you're staying true to the given circumstances, being authentic to the character. And when they call action again, make sure you're ready to jump into it, right? It's this really interesting invisible line between being yourself and being in character. And as opposed to stage acting, you have to go in between the two much quicker. It's a big stress sometimes because it's a lot to juggle, but it's what makes screen acting a lot of fun. Quiet on set. I need to define this term very well for you all because sometimes I think people don't understand what this means. And this means for the production people as well, and for the actors that aren't on camera as well. Quiet on set means absolute quiet, except for the people talking, right? If the director is talking to their DP and people are talking in the background, they call quiet on set, or the producer calls quiet on set. Be quiet. It's as simple as that. You can do your own thing, right? You can text on your phone, make sure you don't make any noise, but make sure you aren't saying anything. Screen acting and film production, TV, it moves very, very, very quickly, much quicker than anything else. So what you'll find is that more than anything else, you need to be quiet. We'll talk a little bit about what this means even more in behavior on set, but just know that keep your movement to a minimum and just try not to make any noise. Final terminology to know, it's one that's kind of out there, but key light. For all my media production people, it's just for an actor, the main light that is lighting their face. Like I said, the eyes, the face, that is the moneymaker. That is what people love to look at. And if you can catch the light in the right way, you're gonna look golden on camera. And that's what people want. So when people mention key light, just know that's what they mean, and make sure that you know what looks great on your face on camera. And just keep that in mind when you're on set. All right, responsibilities of the actor. For the screen actor, you have a much different set of responsibilities because of the difference in process, right? And there are two things I've boiled it down to. First, doing the homework, and second, taking care of yourself. The homework for a screen actor is so much different. And it does require work. It really does. Before a set where you are called, make sure you're coming in, and if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're being called for, make sure you are off book, right? There might be some last minute changes to the script. You need to be prepared for that. You need to make sure that it is all internalized before you enter a set. And you know what thoughts you have about this given scene in whatever production, right? Because like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of jumping back and forth between a production, right? You might be jumping into the climax of the entire movie you're filming. And just yesterday, you were filming the introduction, right? You need to make sure you do your homework so that you are prepared. Now, I say these things, but it may not be clear what this looks like. So I'll be showing you some questions that you can ask yourself for every single scene that you're a part of. It's a bit overkill, but if you're doing a very serious film, I recommend just fill these out of curiosity. The questions for a given scene: who am I? Who do I hope to be in life? Who am I afraid I am? Where am I and what surrounds me? Why here? A bit more clarification, but like, why is this scene taking place here? Why am I wearing the clothes I'm wearing? It's a really simple question, but it's also super essential because that is what the people are seeing, right? It's what's being seen on you. A lot of the physical identity says a lot about the acting as well. And why is this conversation occurring now? Why this moment as opposed to any other? Those questions, though simple, can ground yourself in any given scene so you are ready for when it comes, right? You don't have to ask yourself in the moment. You don't have to be lost in your thought. No, you can focus your attention outward on whatever's happening in the scene and give that attention. People love to watch somebody listening to somebody else on camera, right? They love scenes where somebody's just like sitting there and just kind of observing. And it's because it is that listening. It's because people are doing these questions, they're answering these things, and it's very subtle in the way they do it. Objective. This is an actor term, but it essentially means in any given circumstances, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve? That is the through line for any action you play. So those questions amount to whom am I speaking? What is this person doing and saying? What do I want this person to do or say? That's really important. What am I afraid this person might do or say? Those set up the stakes for a scene. What do I stand to win in the scene? What do I stand to lose in the scene? In any given moment, that's where you'll find the subtlety in acting. That's the juicy stuff. If you want to go from landing your mark, being in frame, to really grounded characters. I actually got these questions from the acting class I took at UNC, and my midterm involved me answering those questions. These were all my answers. They are long because these questions don't have simple answers. You need to answer every single thing, right? For a person. You need to set up the stakes so firmly for yourself. This really amounted to 2 minutes on screen, right? But I have 6 pages worth of notes. That much is going on inside everybody's brain at any given point in time, right? It's really easy to be yourself because you've already studied your past. You've lived it, right? The hard job of an actor is to do the homework so you understand what fully lived life you've lived up until now. I know, a lot of words, but all of this essentially amounts to your lived experiences up until the point where we see you on camera. And that's juicy. People love to see that. Another thing you'll find with homework is being really specific with your movements. This is another thing I did in my acting class where I literally scripted every single movement I would do on screen. I talk about how many steps I take. I talk about what place I put my backpack down. I show where I head. I describe the ways in which I do things. Honestly, what you want to limit is the descriptions of the ways you do things, but just talk about just doing them, right? It's really detailed, but this is also just as essential, right? Because like I said before, movie acting, screen acting in general is a lot of repetition. It's so much repetition, right? You need to be able to do the emotional scene you're doing 100 times. You have to be prepared for that, right? And you need to be prepared to do the simple actions you're doing on set, whether it's tossing your phone back and forth, clicking a pen. Every single time, you need to be consistent, right? Because for all of us who have edited before, behind the scenes, we know how much of a nightmare it can be when there isn't consistency among shots, right? The reason actors have to script this out to make sure they know so firmly in their brain how many clicks of the pen, when they twirl, with what line they're giving. They need to know how firmly and when those actions are being placed, because they need to be able to do that many, many different times, right? And when you do this homework, you'll find that little adjustments that the director asks you to make. And when they say, like, hey, lose the pen, it's easy. You've done the homework, right? So you can easily lose the pen and play a different action, right? Those tiny little things will get your brain chugging. It'll show that you're thinking, right? It's acting, believable behavior under given circumstances. But what you're doing instead is you're making it easier because you've made a certain step of actions that are so easy to replicate. Another exercise I will encourage all of you to do when this session ends. Pick an everyday thing that you do all the time. Brushing your teeth, right? Everybody does it. Everybody brushes their teeth in a different way, however subtle it may be. Everybody brushes their teeth in a different way. Sometimes people wet the brush before they put the toothpaste on it. Sometimes people put the toothpaste on it and then wet it. Regardless, there is a set list, a script of activities that everybody follows every day, right? It's so easy to do when you're just living your life, but the hard job of an actor is to replicate that real life, right? So find yourself and pick an activity you do every day, and internally in the back of your brain, just take a note of every single tiny thing you do, right? We're kind of Mr. Miyagi up in this. We're wax on, wax off, taking note of everything so we can get better as actors. Because when we notice the tiny little things we do, when we're authentic to ourselves and we're self-aware, we'll find that we can easily replicate those things. We can make the tiny little thing we do on screen a character's habit, a lived experience. It's those tiny things that make acting really compelling. And it's very unnoticeable when we're looking at a movie or a TV show. A lot of work goes into making sure it's the same thing every time. Now let's talk about our second responsibility, taking care of yourself. Just like I said, how it's important that this is on screen, it's just as important to make sure this is maintained. Physically and mentally, making sure that you are well and taken care of, right? Because you want to put your best foot forward when it comes to acting. So if we're honestly thinking about pursuing acting in a serious sense in the future, and honestly, any sort of thing in the future, you want to make sure that the homework you're doing also includes that before you even start shooting for a film, making sure that you're feeling well, you're eating well, you're eating right, and you're taking care of yourself, whether that means meditation, journaling, mental exercises, making sure that you're all right. Because you'll find that when you're not all right, you get in your head, and that doesn't make for good acting, right? You're not focusing. You have to focus on yourself before you can focus on the work. And it's just as important to take care of yourself. And once you take care of yourself, you can take care of the work on screen. Now let's talk about behavior on set. This next section kind of stands out because I'll be talking about a lot of things that just should be expected for any normal human being, just like being a good person, right? That's what it essentially amounts to. But there are certain things that maybe we can be less ignorant of on a set because it's a different ecosystem, right? Where you think you might not be being rude, you might actually be being incredibly disrespectful. So let's revisit quiet on set, right? It's an example of being respectful on set. When somebody calls quiet, you stay quiet. But what this means is that if you are off stage, even if you are an actor, something important is about to happen. If somebody calls action, and if you are behind the camera, stay still. Don't move. Be quiet. Because the person on camera is doing a lot of work to make sure that they are tuning out the outside world and using their imagination, right? They're in this beautiful headspace of theirs. And even a tiny movement off camera of somebody like showing their friend a funny image, that can distract them. And like I said before, the camera picks up everything. And so that tiny moment where you're showing somebody something, the actor on screen picks that up just briefly with the eyes, right? And that ruins the shot, really. In these high budget films, if you're talking about professionals, we try to limit that as much as possible, right? I think that is just an example of the type of respect that is required on a set. But we'll find that a lot of times on college, things are fast and loose, and we often play roles that we're not supposed to have. Somebody in front of the camera hops on mic, right? It's kind of newfangled, and it's not as serious sometimes. But what we can take from these lessons are practice, right? Even if we aren't going to act on screen in the future, even if we're going into something different or production, or even if we're doing something completely different, the key principles stay the same. Know your environment and know when and when not to do things, right? So a set is its own ecosystem, but it's also filled with people. You have to be good to the people around you because they're going to be dealing with you for many, many, many hours, right? Help them out if they need it, right? On student television or student film, you'll often find that maybe you're going to end up carrying some equipment around. If you're able, go for it, right? Help around when you can. It's just a part of being a good person. Another thing to keep in mind, though, in the future is that once you get into more serious acting outside of college, you won't find yourself stepping into those roles. Other people are paid to carry the equipment. Other people are paid to do the sound. You are just there to be on screen, and that's it. You aren't that important in the grand scheme of things. That's not anything against the screen actor, but it's just that. There are so many moving parts that you just need to do your job and get out. Help people do their jobs with people doing your makeup for something. Treat them well. You have to treat them well. They're going to be working on you for hours and hours, and they're going to make you look great, right? You have to treat the people around you well because everything is run by people. And what you'll often find is that in the future, people will remember you for being a kind person. Another thing that can apply to as well, being human. I don't even know why I need to say this, but just don't be weird. Don't be weird. In any work environment, don't be weird. It's simple as that. Behavior on set means being a professional. And student TV and student film is fun. All of it is fun, but at the same time, people really care about the things they're making, right? So when people ask you to do something politely, whether that means being quiet on set, helping them out with something, or anything of the sort, right? Listen and help them out. It's part of the job as well as an actor, right? You have the ability to jump into these different roles on screen, but what you'll often find, especially on college, is that you'll step into a bunch of roles off screen as well. And that's just part of the job, and it's part of learning. Behavior on set means showing up on time, being kind to the people around you, doing your job right, and making sure you limit the amount of takes that these people have to do, and having fun, making the place much better than you left it. That's really what acting is all about. It's performance, but it's based in authentic imagination and focus on the people around you. That's it. That's screen acting. Thanks so much for sticking with me. Do y'all have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about like fluid movement, and like, you know, just realistic movement, but also like staying in frame.
Mhm.
And I noticed, like, when I look back at some of the work I did last year at, in STV, like, I kind of can tend to, like, overcorrect and just be, like, frozen in place. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, how you personally keep realistic movement while still, like, staying in frame. And you mentioned, like, writing out movements. And if you do, like, plan out your movements ahead of time, how do you make those movements seem, like, fluid and realistic and not like a little
Yeah,
robot-y?
I'm really glad you brought this up because one other big thing about screen acting is authenticity, right? I keep bringing it back to that, right? But acting is believable behavior under given circumstances. So writing it out is just a way for us to make sure we're able to do it over and over and over again, right? It's for the editors, really. But like everything else, when you find that you brush your teeth in these exercises that I've given you, just softly, you'll find that you brush your teeth different every single time. Every single take is different, right? And in that way, it's a little bit like theater, right? Every single take has its own unique personality, right? So what I find is I often go back and forth between, okay, I gotta stay still, right? I gotta be really calm. But that moves me away from the core of acting, which is believable behavior. People move, people do stuff, right?
Yeah.
But people don't do this. People don't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be very, very, very technical, right? When you ask for your frame, sometimes you have space to do your natural, more flowy movements here, but you need to limit it in the back, right? So in your head, you need to be drawing out a mental picture of where you can play and where you can't. That's just one example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always a balance, right? That's what my answer will be. It's always a balance between, all right, am I doing this technically well, but how am I balancing that with authenticity? Does it seem real? Do we believe you, right? Maybe it's okay to be frozen in character because that's what the character would do if they're cornered and somebody has finally caught them red-handed. But if you're talking with your friends and you're just hanging out, people are moving, things are free flowing. It's just like we're talking right now. We're moving, but we're not moving our head as much, right? It's not always still, right?
Yeah.
We're moving it
Mm-hmm.
around, but there are limits to it, is what I'll say. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thanks.
feel free to be natural. Comments too. I'll take those. If not, oh, peeps.
I'm gonna say 10 out of 10.
Maybe. Chris,
Very good job. Appreciate you. You're very cute.
appreciate you too.
Well, thank you, Anish, for hosting and leading us. I feel like we all learned a lot. And if you guys want to come back for more learning, next week we have an alumni career panel with like a series of really cool people in all sorts of different fields. And then the week after, we're doing an editing workshop. And so if you want to learn more, come back
Need to
the
go to
following
that.
Thursdays at 7 p.m. and it'll be a super fun time.
Nice. STV. Oh, there.
Tell your friends. Tell your
See you
friends.
guys.